Hi everybody, it's Michelle here at Solo in Canada, Musings from Midlife, and I'm here to talk to you today about loneliness. And I'm not really feeling that lonely because you can see I have a whole bunch of friends here helping me today. So these guys are going to accompany me on my trek because I know their friends are in the forest there with me. And let's get started. Our topic today is about loneliness. You know, when I first started thinking about loneliness, I was really thinking about it because we were solo, or because we're not solo and young anymore. We're solo and we're in the 50 to 70 age range, and for some reason that would bring on loneliness. But the more I considered that, and the more I watched YouTube videos and listened to talk shows on the radio as I was driving somewhere, or just happened to be, in a waiting room and reading magazine articles, the more I saw that loneliness is being talked about a lot now. And it isn't directed to a particular age group. You might see articles that are, talking about senior citizens' loneliness, or talking about loneliness after divorce, etc. But the more I looked into things, the more I found that every generation is experiencing loneliness from 18 on. So at first, a while back, before I changed my thinking, I used to think that my moments of loneliness and times where I felt lonely were connected to me being divorced. But now I feel like it's not about that at all. I think it's just a part of the human condition. I really do. And then I started to think, well, that makes sense, because we know that we are genetically programmed to feel the loneliness, because in order for us to survive, we need to be with other people. So it's really just a little tiny triggering biologically when you aren't feeling any connectedness to other human beings. There's this little whispering that you're lonely and you need to do something to resolve that situation. So that started to make me feel really differently about the whole concept of loneliness. And perhaps you hadn't thought of that. And consider, if this is a new thought to you, the fact that everybody experiences loneliness. How does that make you feel? Because for some reason, it made me feel a whole lot better and a whole lot more positive about the situation. And the other thing I noticed is that as soon as you read comments in social media where somebody has written something about loneliness for a single person, all of a sudden you get all these replies in the comment section where people are saying, well, I'm partnered and I experience loneliness too. So I really think that it's just a part of the human condition. But I would like to explore loneliness and how solos feel the loneliness today, because my thoughts are that perhaps you might be out there solo and feeling lonely and not feeling good about it and looking for answers. I don't generally talk about loneliness with the people in my world. And I think the reason why is because in the past, people never talked about being lonely. That's kind of a new thing with the younger generations, to talk about their feelings. But I think for the boomers, the Gen X's, and even some of the older millennials, I think that to tell someone you're lonely, that was just a huge taboo. Nobody did that. I think the reason why is because if you say you're lonely, it felt like you were admitting that you were a loser. It did. I don't think I'm alone in this. I think that, just stop here, get the sun out of my eyes. I think that in the past, if you told people you were lonely, the assumption was that you had difficulties interacting with people because you weren't stable, that you had emotional problems, and that you couldn't forge healthy, normal relationships, which is completely silly. And because I've now come to believe that everybody feels loneliness, that that's a part of the human condition, I don't feel as afraid to say that yes, there are days I feel lonely. Sometimes I attribute that to my own choices. Sometimes I just attribute it to the way society dismisses or disregards certain populations in society. And then lots of times now, I just see it as no fault, no result of some flaw in anybody, myself or society, and really just what is. It's just normal. One way to combat loneliness is to reach out to the people who are your friends and family on a weekly basis. Don't let it go any longer. With our lives these days, it can be 4 or 5 weeks before you've connected with someone important to you again. Ask them if they'd be okay with you guys having a face-to-face conversation on video chat or just a phone call and just hearing their voice and interacting on a weekly basis. I think that that's a fantastic strategy for you to be able to feel that even though you might not be seeing lots of people and going out with lots of social events, if you pick 2 or 3 people, let's say 3 people in your world, just ask them if they would like to connect on a regular basis. And you set that time so that you know that you're going to call them. Video chat, I think, would be nicer than just audio because you see their face. I know it's not as good as complete face-to-face in person, but I think that it would fill some gaps, and that might help you to feel less lonely. So that's my first strategy. The second strategy that I've used when I felt lonely is to bring in the arts. And for me, I do enjoy doing sometimes a little painting or drawing, but more so for me, it's music. So I've created some playlists with music that makes me feel good and positive. And more than just a couple of songs, I have a couple of different playlists that I use so that I don't tire of the same old songs. One of the things I've noticed is that if you develop songs, or if you put on your songs on your playlist, a whole bunch of songs from the era where you felt you were maybe happier, if you kind of identify a time period in your life in the past that was a time where things were going well and you felt really good about yourself and you felt like you had a lot of social connections and you didn't think you felt lonely, then load up a lot of those songs onto a playlist. So loading up music for me has always been great to bring back just those feelings I feel like I was 20 years ago. If I play a whole bunch of music from a time that was a happy time for me, I almost kind of remember. It's like my body has this muscle memory where I feel like that person again. And all the hopes and dreams of that person at that stage of life, they just somehow get absorbed into every cell in my body. Another strategy that I have often used is distraction. So if for some reason I find myself in a bit of a kind of a slump and I'm just not myself that day and I'm feeling kind of down and I just feel like I keep kind of heading towards a bit of a spiral of negativity, then I know on those days I need a distraction. And so for me, my distraction is always movement, getting out. Movement changes the body. So if you are starting to feel stressed or anxious about, the negativity that's kind of feeling like it's moving in, get up, get out, and get moving. I think it's the best thing you could do for your situation. That's a great distraction. Now, If you're in a situation where you can't do that, think about other things for you that work for a distraction. So maybe you have a hobby that you can pull out and start getting involved in that hobby. But whatever it is, you need to break up your thought patterns. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos if you're getting anything of value to it. I'm really trying to build the YouTube channels. It's been a month for me. I'm getting some subscriptions and some likes. Hopefully it's helpful. I really feel like we're underrepresented for midlife years. And I'm saying 50 to 70. I know some people will say, well, those older years are not really midlife anymore, but I just feel like we're changing the game in terms of how we age and how our lifestyles are set, and how we want to be interacting with all ages in society. Well, you just can't compare us to the people historically who were in that age group, because it's just a whole different way of living. So I'm looking at the 50 to 70-year-old age group, but I really feel like we're underrepresented in social media. And I don't want to see videos by some 30-year-old who's going to tell me how life's going to be and how I should think and feel and what experiences I'm going to have 30 years older than they are. I'd like to hear from people who are going through it right now, and that's me. I'm going through it right now. And all my friends are, and I've heard lots of stories from them, and I'm just trying to get some representation out of there. If you'd like to be a part of that, please like and subscribe. It helps me tremendously, and I'm learning too as I go, so things will get better, and we'll just see how things develops. Another strategy to combat loneliness is just to go outside, even if you're not interacting with people, just to be around people. If you're starting to really wallow in negative feelings in your home, then go to the same place regularly so that people recognize you and you can just acknowledge them, but just be around them. I don't know people in my yoga class, but I always show up to the same yoga class, and it seems like we all have a preference for where we want to set up our mat. And so I've learned over the months that, the lady with the long brown hair likes to be 2 over from me, and she always gets there early to put her mat out like me. I think they've learned that me, the lady, like in the corner, because I like the corner so I can put my equipment against the wall. So we acknowledge each other. I don't know their names. They don't know my names, but I feel like I belong. I feel like I'm supposed to be there, and I feel like they're supposed to be there. And, I just have a little hello for the 2 women who seem to always work that shift at the desk. I've gotten, some conversations in with the people who work mornings at the gyms, at the desk in the fitness room. So now I recognize them. I know they recognize me. We've had a few conversations. They know a little bit about me. So just putting yourself out there in public, even if you're not having too much, you're not exactly building a relationship, but you're just establishing yourself as belonging in that environment and recognizing that those people belong in that environment too. It's amazing how you can go out to that and really not have any deep conversations, but still feel like you're not lonely anymore. So make sure you get yourself out there. Another strategy that has worked very well for me, and I suspect it's starting to work for other people too, based on the change in the type of YouTube videos that I'm seeing posted, and that is to stop pretending. Just stop trying to portray this kind of awesome, everything under control, I'm a winner, I have no issue persona that kind of used to be the vibe of our social media airwaves. But I have noticed a huge shift. I don't know, I guess I noticed it about 5 years ago. Not sure how long it's been going on, but it used to be that all the YouTube videos were all these, super posh, super polished. They seem completely, poised, and everything in their content is all super positive. But now it seems like we're getting a lot more videos and social media posts that are just regular people, and they're just being very authentic, and they're not filtering some of the not so wonderful aspects, and it's refreshing. I find it refreshing because it does seem like you can relate more to that. It's very hard to connect to somebody who is acting like their whole world is fantastic, because you're either going to believe it and then feel worse about yourself, or you're not going to believe it and therefore you feel completely disconnected to that person too. I also know that it's very hard to develop deeper relationships with people if you never offer up any vulnerability, because they only develop a trust with you when they see that you have offered up some vulnerability, and then they feel like they can offer you some up in exchange. Now, somebody has to be authentic first, right? So who's it going to be? Well, I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe it's the person who has reached midlife and they have less concerns about what people think about them. Or maybe it's someone like you who might be thinking, you know what? I might have something to lose by being vulnerable, but I also might have something really great to gain, and it's worth the shot. I am prepared to risk being hurt or being, laughed at for the shot at developing a deeper relationship with someone. And I know that's scary. Like me, I have always been super guarded, always protected myself because of, past hurts. So I've always been very careful to protect myself. But at some point, this new mindset of the learning that you can't actually have deep relationships with people if you're never offering up any authenticity or vulnerability, it connected with me. And maybe I heard it in earlier years and just didn't want to believe it, or just didn't feel strong enough to do it. But at that time in my life, I was ready to receive that message. My relationships have really developed and become really good in those years since I made that change. So if you are maybe at a point in your life right now where you're ready to receive that message and give it a shot, I hope that this piece of information that I passed along is helpful. The other strategy that you could use is to remember that in our days where we're feeling lonely and sometimes sad, remember that feeling passes. It doesn't often stay for a long period of time. And sometimes when we get in that mindset, we can sort of, convince ourselves that this is a permanent situation. And when that happened to me, I would always kind of giggle at myself the next day, because I'd be having one day where I'd be, feeling sorry for myself and feeling really lonely and like I'm not connected to anybody or anything in my life and all that, made mistakes and what did I do, blah, blah, blah. And then the very next day, it just happens to be a day where I'm busy, I have things to do, I get up, I get on with things, I'm in a good mood, I feel very content, I feel very happy with my life. And then I'll walk out my front door and I'll be walking towards my car and I'll just think back to yesterday. It was only 24 hours earlier where I was telling myself all of this misery story as if it was a permanent situation. And then here I am 24 hours later feeling great. It's the same life. I'm the same person. Nothing has changed in those 24 hours. The only thing that changed between yesterday and today was my attitude. And our attitude is everything. And I know that's a poster that you see on the wall. In fact, I used to have it on my own wall. But it isn't a platitude. It's real. Your perception is your reality. So we need to start controlling our reality better by changing our mindset. Changing our own attitude is actually easier than trying to go out and make all kinds of friends and develop deep connections and finding our passion. Those are all great strategies that I'm going to include in this. They're all great and they'll all help. But it's a whole lot easier just to change your attitude. So how do you change your attitude? Well, for me, I write things down. I keep a gratitude journal. I say out loud as I'm walking through the forest or as I'm driving somewhere, I will say out loud positive thoughts to myself. I'll tell myself what I'm good at. I'll thank me for certain things I've done that have brought positive things to my world. And I will thank the world for things that, are in place. So don't forget to do that, because that really does make a difference. Remember, your perception is your reality. So change the way you look at things. So I'm walking into this really cool place in the forest. I'm going to turn around so you can see it. I don't know how much you can see. Kind of like a cave, the way the trees bend. It's bizarre, actually. We had a big ice storm here last winter, and all of the trees are bending, probably from the weight of the ice that sat on them for weeks until it started to melt and the ice would slide off. Let's see if I can show you here too. See, there's a lot of that. And it's probably a nice protective place for a lot of little mammals in the forest. It's almost like you're walking in this other world. So I think that these trees are evidence of resilience and strength and beauty. And I would like us all to maybe mimic the trees a little bit more, be what we are, put ourselves out as that, and then still have something really awesome to offer. Another way to combat your lonely feelings is to get to know yourself better. Because maybe those lonely feelings aren't the fact that you're not connecting with people. Maybe it's because you're not connecting with yourself. Maybe you don't understand who you are and are feeling a little bit lost in that way. So try to figure out, I like to do this through meditation, and my meditation is walking in nature. But try to figure out who you are and what makes you happy. What are you passionate about? What activities do you get engaged in that you lose all track of time? What activities never make you feel lonely, that you don't even give it a thought? You're so immersed in your own development, and you're so immersed in the activity that is bringing you joy, that you're not even thinking about the external world and about how people feel about you, or why those people don't seem to be inviting you out, or why they seem to prefer other people in your social group versus you. All of those little questions that can start to niggle inside our brain when we start losing our confidence or have bouts of low self-esteem. So what activities do you do that you love doing, or environments you're in that you love being in, where you just feel a passion for that, and it brings you such joy that you don't even give a thought to anything else? So all that to say, the more you know yourself and have a deeper relationship with yourself within, in terms of knowing who you are and knowing what things you find beautiful and bring you joy, the better you can position yourself with the external world too. I think once you start to just go with your own flow, and as they say, walk to the beat of your own drum, I think there will be less internal struggle, seeking, less feeling that you're lonely, and more feeling like you're grounded. And when you feel like you're grounded and you know who you are and you trust your own gut, maybe there'll be less concern and less yearning to not feel as lonely. Maybe the feeling of loneliness will disappear, or maybe it will just be short and it will come and go as it does with me. Just living alone, it comes and it goes depending on, what I'm doing. Maybe that's normal. Maybe we're supposed to. So we need to stop listening to all the noise. Put those strategies in place if you want. Try them out. Put in the comments whether or not you found different strategies that worked for you, or if you tried any of the strategies I suggested and you actually did benefit from them. I would love to hear. I'm going to wrap this up now and enjoy the rest of my walk. It's a beautiful October here in Ontario. It's super hot today, so I'm in jeans and I'm sweating because it's 20 degrees out. Who would have imagined that mid-October it's going to be 20 degrees out? But this path has ticks and poison ivy, so I'm not going to be in anything but long jeans and long socks.